Council, no one has signed up for open forum tonight, so that we will start our council meeting. It is 2 minutes after 7. We are in council chambers. If I might please have declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as has been amended. We have a delegation, an additional delegation from Canine Pest Management. We have a delegation from the OSPCA. And also, as we have 3 delegations, we've had someone, Mr. Hurd, request a 4th delegation, which would require a waiver of procedural bylaw. Madam Clerk, should we do this all at once or do this separately?
It's up to you. It requires 2/3.
Okay, so if we could, if someone with council would care to waive procedural bylaw to allow the 4th delegation, Councillor Abel first, Councillor Kim second. Comments or questions?
What item is the 4th delegation?
It is, I'm sorry, it is to Councillor Kim's motion. It's with respect to the Aurora Cultural Partners. Thank you. Any other comments? All in favor of waiving procedure to bring that forward? Thank you. In that case, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda then as amended? Councillor Abel, Councillor Gartner, all in favor? Contrary, that is carried. Thank you very much. May I please have a motion to adopt the minutes from the council meeting of September the 13th, the General Committee closed session meeting of September the 20th. Councillor Perry, thank you. Second, please. Councillor Maracas. Any comments or questions on those minutes? All in favor? Contrary, that is carried. First presentation up is from Mr. Elliott with respect to the 2017 Capital Investment Program overview. Mr. Elliott, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Tonight I want to introduce the 2017 capital budget, and along with that we also review and take a look at the 10-year capital investment plan that gets updated every year. And there's no decisions to make tonight, so I'm just going to give you some context and some overview, and then at the end of the meeting I have the detailed budget materials that will circulate, and then you've got about 2 weeks to review that for our next meeting. So in going forward, we continue to invest in our infrastructure. That's what capital investment program is about, investing in our infrastructure that makes our city work, it makes our town work, and provides the services to our community. So, as I said, there's no decisions or approvals to make, just setting the context. We're going to look at some materials and then circulate that. For next time, you're going to have to take an opportunity to glance through the 10-year capital investment plan. There's a lot of detail in it. I'd encourage you to contact any of the directors if you have any questions about that. It's well organized. It's not changed in its organization from last year, so it'll be very familiar to you. The 2017 detailed capital budget is where we get into the meat of what we'll be actually approving this fall. And so there's a separate detail for each project that's listed in there. Just one quick little thing. There was a last-minute adjustment. We deleted a $250,000 project, and so the binder is correct. My report tonight has some older numbers in it. They've been superseded. So just to give you that heads up, if you're trying to reconcile my report to the binder, it won't quite work. In recent years, we've made a number of achievements in financial sustainability. We've worked on our 10-year consolidated investment plan. It's currently valued in the next 10 years, $194 million planned spend. We continue to build our annual tax cash to capital reserve contributions. We're ensuring our alignment with the town's approved asset management plan, and we continue to maximize our access to available grant monies, both federal, provincial, and other sources where we can. We have worked together as a group, and we have developed and approved council budget principles and budget process. And what these 2 documents do is essentially lay out for members of council, new members of council, prospective members of council, and the public what the, if I could say it, what the rules of the budget game are at the town of Aurora. And they're very mature. We are looking long-term. We look in the details in the off-season, and we look at the big pictures that are before us each fall. We have the Finance Advisory Committee. They're the ones that are doing this detailed operating budget review. Last year, we looked at the corporate revenue and expenses, as well as the Parks and Rec Department. And next year, we've got the Infrastructure and Environmental Services Group on queue. We have increased our financial management and our accountability in all of our departments, pushing it down into the managerial layers and even into the supervisory layers in some areas. Just a little financial context. Our net worth, this is like what would happen if at the end of Monopoly you cash out, who's worth the most. And as you can see, we continue to increase our net worth. This is through generally the acquisition of assets, many of which are built and constructed by the developers as we assume them, but it also includes new stuff that we build ourselves. So our net worth has increased to just under $500 million. So congratulations, we are managing a $500 million organization. This includes cash and investments of nearly $100 million. And our capital assets, our amortized cost, our net book value, if you were an accountant like I am, $434 million. As you can see, this continues to increase. Our tax-funded capital reserve contribution increases every year, and that's what we need to do. We've seen that in our 10-year capital planning, our long-range financial planning. We need to do that. We've got a plan. We're sticking to the plan, and I'll show you a slide in a couple moments that shows why it's working. We've also got contribution as a percent of our amortization. This is a little troubling number. You can see it's declining. That's because our assets are growing. But our contribution is actually increasing. But last year in Ontario, the average, no, I'm sorry, that's the wrong number. I was looking at a note here. When I go back to that cash to capital and the increases and the stability that we have, this is a graph and the history of our contributions to capital from the tax base. You can see in the early 2000s, we had a lot of fluctuation, and what this caused was a lot of fluctuation in the tax rate increases. So it was volatile. It also made it tough to predict. It also made it tough to be a senior manager, and it probably made it difficult to be a politician in that period. We come along to about 2010, and we began a steady pace. This is where our financial plan kicked in and said we need increased contributions to reserves. And we began increasing it every year since. And it's been very stable, very steady, a little bit of fluctuation in a couple of years. But as we go forward, we're looking at that being able to be dropped down to about 0.6% instead of 1%. And so you can see in 2017 it's down there to 0.6. And so this is allowing everyone in this room to have predictable and stable tax outlooks and assurance that there's funding to look after our infrastructure in the future. The reason we have this is because right now our assets as a group, as a whole, are about 26% used up. If I could use that, your car's got 26,000 miles on it. And on average, out of 95 municipalities in a survey last year, the average was just over 37% used up. And so this tells us that we're relatively young in our assets. It gives us more time to build those reserves. We can do it in smaller steps than some municipalities are facing. We have longer time to plan our assets, but I believe that we're in good control with our asset management practices now and our long-range financial planning. Our owned assets, this is a graph. It's got a little bit too much detail perhaps, but you can see that the largest portion of this is underground and out of sight. Our underground assets represent $166 million of 434. And these underground assets, they're out of sight. The good thing is, though, is we've got asset managers such as Anka in the room here who look after this. We've got asset managers in many departments that look after these various groups. They're all done separately by separate individuals to make sure that they are done well. And they have separate reserve funds that they are charged with managing in the long run as well. So you can see that the underground, the landed improvements, the roads and lighting and sidewalks, and the buildings make up the biggest chunks of our infrastructure. But we also include our IT assets, which are invisible on this chart, but they're important because they can sneak up and bite you too. On our reserve funds, people like to talk about our reserve funds. I don't have a number on here. We've got new infrastructure reserve funds. We've got infrastructure sustainability reserves. We've got special purpose reserves, a tiny little sliver there of $800,000. We've got stabilization reserves totaling almost $7 million. And we've still got almost $38 million from our hydro sale proceeds. So this constitutes the balance in our reserve funds. The details of these reserves, the purposes of them, the sources of funding to them, and the rules about them are all available on our website on our budget and financial information page. So a little more context. Our total debt right now has increased from 2014. During 2015, we completed the JOC, and we had a significant increase in our debt on that, as you know, and so that's what triggered that change. And so it should be pretty stable and begin showing decline in the coming years. Our debt and our interest payment limit is $16 million per year. That's the maximum that we're allowed as a municipality to incur as a repayment in the year. The total debt and interest payments that we actually made in 2015 was just under $2 million. And so as a percent of that, it's about 11%, 12%. And our payment unused is about 14. So we have a lot of capacity for additional debt. We just have to be very, very wise and prudent in when we do that. Our 10-year capital plan includes 2016 plus 10 years. In that plan, there's a total of 289 projects worth over $200 million of spend. Got 175 repair and replacement projects representing about half of that, and half of that represents roads. And so we continue to invest in the quality of our roads, whether it's protecting them from moisture through crack sealing and other capital efforts, whether it's refurbishing them with a shave and a pave operation where you take off the delayer and relay it, or whether you're digging the whole thing up and refurbishing the entire road bed itself. This is ANCA's area, and they look to stretch our infrastructure get as much life out of it as you can, and sometimes that means making the early repairs early. It's like your car. You catch a little bit of rust early, it's a good investment. And so that's what Anka and her team are looking after. We've got 93 growth and new investment projects, about 48% of our budget. This does include a couple of new significant projects. We've got library space in there, we've got new community center in there, and we've got a new fire hall and headquarters in this 10-year window. And the fire hall and headquarters is actually in this year, 2017. When we look at our repair and replacement reserves coming from the tax base, this graphic is strictly from the tax base, excluding gas tax and other grant monies. We aim to have a reserve fund contribution balance, or a reserve balance, the green line, of approximately twice our annual spend. And at the end of this 10-year window, that's what this shows. The blue bars is the fluctuation of the capital spend, and that's where we can optimize when we make the investments. We don't have to hit specific smooth line targets of each year. We can allow some volatility in the spend as long as we've got the plan in place. But this plan includes those increases in contribution to reserves, the red line. Without it, this is what the picture would look like. We'd end the 10-year window with a negative reserve fund balance. We wouldn't be anywhere near our targets, and we're not sustainable. So that's why it's very important that we have those increments in place and part of our 10-year plan to make sure that we've got the future funding available when those needs arise. So our 10-year plan, if we just focus now on the actual 2017 capital details, this is the split of it. We've got a $36 million proposed plan, $11 million in repair and replacement, It's a little higher than average, but it's not far off the mark, and it's pretty much what we forecasted it would be last year. Growth in new infrastructure, the same thing. It's about where we forecasted it to be. It's high because it's got that fire hall in it, and it's got a turf field in it. It's got some other things in it. And our studies and other periodic projects are very small, for a total capital budget of $36 million. The infrastructure repair and replacement, we just split it out here. Our 5-year average has been about $8.5 million in the last 5 years. 2017 is showing $11 million. We do have some larger projects involved in the roads and related, some underground services, and in facilities. But it's what we had forecasted for last year, so it does not come as a shock to me. We were prepared financially for it, and so this is one of those peaks in that volatile planning spend. The growth in new infrastructure, again, we've got that big fire hall in there. It's dominating this particular piece, and that's why we've got the 5-year average. Normally there's very little in fire services, and so when you take that out, our growth in new infrastructure is pretty much normal. And you can see we continue to invest in roads and facilities, in Parks and Rec, and even in our internal areas. So for the 2017 capital, our next steps, we have a budget meeting on Saturday, Saturday, October the 15th at 9 o'clock. We're going to be in this room. The operating budget day meeting is on a Monday, so we're kind of balancing some who like the weekends and some who don't like the weekends. Unfortunately, we've got one of each. We're going to review through the capital budget binder first. I've got it here tonight, and we'll look through the 10-year capital plan together. We'll give a synopsis on the asset management program itself, but the asset management plan is not subject to review this year. We do it once every 4 years. That's the sort of how do we do asset management. The 10-year plan is the output from that process, and then we will get into the detailed 2017 capital. And I'd encourage you to go through it. We've got about 2 weeks or more, and go through it beforehand. Contact the directors with any questions you have. There's pictures in it. There's charts and graphs in some places. And then once we're finished, and hopefully we can conclude on Saturday, I think we did it pretty much last year in one day, our capital program, and we'll be then taking that directly to council for budget approval, and then our staff can get ready and begin even preparing tender documents and specifications for these projects. So, Mr. Mayor, that is the conclusion of my short presentation tonight, just to give you a flavor of where we're going and where we're headed. A reminder to those that may be watching, all of our budget meetings are open to the public. You can participate by reaching out to your councillors, contacting them by email. You can reach us at our email, ourtownbudget@aurora.ca, or you can go online and fill out our budget survey as well. And so there's different ways of being involved, and at the beginning of every budget meeting, you have an opportunity to share your opinions with Council Direct.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. May I please have a motion for his council to receive the item and receive the presentation, refer to the item. Councillor Perry, thank you. Councillor Kim, second. Comments or questions for Mr. Elliott, please? Councillor Perry, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Elliott. With regard to the 2017 R&R expenditures, I'll give you a second. So I understand that we're prepared for the increase. Just wondering roughly where that increase is coming from. Is it more roads-based, more facilities-based, or is it across the board, everything's up this year?
There's a short list of about 3 or 4 projects. They're highlighted in my report tonight on the agenda.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Don. Welcome back. Through you to Mr. Elliott. Mr. Elliott, if you could just put up the 2017 growth and new infrastructure pie chart. Perfect. So just to clarify your comment, you said the majority of it is fire services, and that's for the new fire hall, but it's 60% of $24 million. Are we talking a $15 million contribution for Aurora's portion to build the fire hall?
No. Through you, Mr. Chair, this is the expected potential full cost of a facility with Newmarket making a funding contribution to it. We'll be in charge of the contract, and so we need to show the full project value in our budget.
So then, although we're paying for the full amount, there's a share equity portion.
You'll see that in the budget details, yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Elliott, please? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. My question is about one of those larger capital projects. I believe it's turf replacement.
Yes.
So I don't know if I can ask Mr. Downey, but at the time we approved it, it was said that it would be a 15-year, it would last for 15 years. Has something happened to cause it to not do that for us?
If there's a quick answer, otherwise we'll refer this to our budget discussions. Mr. Downey, do you have a quick answer on that?
See, Mr. Mayor, it has more to do with use than anything. It's a very, very popular field, and so we have more use than we'd ever anticipated. And we are getting some concerns raised by the user groups in it that we need to do early replacement.
Thank you.
Councillor? Councillor Marcos? Okay. If there's no other comments or questions, all in favor of receive and refer? Contrary, that's carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Elliott. And then we'll get those budget binders for a little nighttime reading. Council will move to public service announcements. Councillor Marcos, may I start with you, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one. YRP actually is going door to door within the northeast quadrant at this moment. I actually had the pleasure of meeting one of the officers. They came to my door and they're speaking to the residents. There's some break-in enters in the area happening, and so they're educating the public on how to make their homes not so friendly to the thieves. So they have some good diagrams and flyers available, and then they're passing those out door to door, like I said. But if anyone does want to take a look, I have posted it on my Facebook, but I'll also mention to our communication manager, Stephanie, that I'll be passing that on to her to put up on our website so all the residents can take a look on how to make their homes more safer.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Many of us were able to go to the Activate Aurora opening, which was really fantastic 2 Sundays ago. And I know Mr. Downey already knows this, but there is something very interesting happening at the Aurora Leisure Complex, and it's called Club Aurora Walk Across South America, which is a challenge to the community to use the track. If you do 11 laps on the track, it equals 1 kilometer. Walking down South America is going to be about, well, more than 7,000. But it will get us active, so hopefully some residents will participate. And I'd like to take the opportunity to thank one of our members. We had a walk across Canada recently that was 11,000 kilometers. And one of our members, Ralph Jessup, who is a senior citizen, by the way, walked more than 1,250 of those kilometers. So it's an interesting opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Downey.
Councillor Thompson.
This weekend, the fire department held an open house at the station next to the Stronach Recreational Complex. Nearly 1,800 residents showed up. I had a chance to stop in. Everybody seemed to have a great opportunity, especially the kids, to be a firefighter for the day. And if you did miss it, they're having another open house in Newmarket, and I encourage you to look up to see which station it is exactly and get out and attend.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we did, since the last time we had the hold down weekend last, and we raised almost $500,000 for 15 charities, and it was a great event. It was a lot of fun, and it really brings the community together. And I want to congratulate Magna and Magna employees for making that available to our communities.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm sorry I missed some of those great events. Feeling a little under the weather this week, but I I do have a couple of announcements. The first one is this weekend is a special weekend. It's going to be Culture Days. And the Aurora, on Saturday, we celebrate Culture Days, joining a long list of cultural activities happening across Canada. We have a passport, and it's free to Aurora residents. It was inserted on your September 22nd Auroran, and special thanks to the Auroran for sponsoring this event, sponsoring that distribution, that print sponsor with Prime Data. Everyone's invited to participate for free this weekend. Things are happening in the precincts, blocks 1 and 3 of the cultural precinct, including starting at the Aurora Farmers Market and our Artisan Fair at 9 a.m. to 1. And then from there, you can go to the Aurora Cultural Center with satellites, performances from Theatre Aurora and the Hillary House historic sites from 10 a.m. to 4, and again at the Aurora Public Library from 1 to 4:15. So all this happens on Saturday. Again, look in your Auroran. There is a passport in there that you can take with you. The passports can also be picked up at any one of these locations, and you have a chance for some big prizes. So it's going to be a great day in Aurora on Saturday. I just wanted to say again, special thanks to the fire department. I was able to go there for a little while, and Enrico, my grandson, was able to be firefighter for the day, and they got the badges and did such a great job. And one of the things that really impressed me was there was 70 volunteers just putting that event in one fire department. It was just a great show of people coming together, and all for a great reason. Lots of good information about smoke detectors and safety plans for your home. So again, as Councillor Thompson mentioned, if you missed this past Saturday, I think the 23rd of, is it the 23rd of October? My apologies for the next one in Newmarket. I can't remember the date. We'll remember by the end of this meeting. Thanks.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank the LEAF organization on Saturday morning when we planted I don't know, well over 100 trees. And thank you to all the volunteers who came out in support of that. And LEAF is an organization, and they have a lot of ideas to green our community, and one of them is to work with developers to add a tree to a new home buy, and encouraging them to plant in their backyards. Want to also congratulate again Northridge Community Church. Many of us were there this weekend, a branch of the Salvation Army Church, just on Leslie and Wellington, and their grand opening, and it was a great occasion, so we wish them much success. And lastly, in town we have the Colors of Fall, October 6th at Town Hall. It'll be pumpkin carving and live entertainment.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm surprised nobody's mentioned this at this point. We do have a councillor absent tonight, so I would like to congratulate Councillor Tom and his wife Kay on their daughter Evelyn Margaret Irene, who is their firstborn and was born on Sunday. So congratulations to them.
Indeed. A couple of announcements here. As the pool season ends, if you're looking for the proper procedures for closing your pool, you can visit poolcouncil.ca. There's also, you may have noticed, there's been a fair amount of construction going on at the Aurora Community Center parking. Parking is limited at that area. We are working at fixing it up and getting it up to speed as quickly as possible. For more information, you can visit our website. Councillor Gartner mentioned Club Aurora, pardon me, and there is a guest day on Friday, September the 30th. Guests should be 12 years of age or older, and you can get more information from that also on our website. Mr. Elliott mentioned the budget, always a fun discussion. We do have our budget survey online, and you can find that at aurora.ca/budget. We are also still looking for input on the cultural precinct, the Library Square area. So aurora.ca/cultural precinct is there. The Haunted Forest, which is always a great event, which is on this year on Saturday the 29th from 6 to 9. I've never been able to make it at night because for some reason we've always been busy, but I always go over there in the afternoon and have a look, and they do an absolutely tremendous job. Our staff does a tremendous job of putting this all together. So a lot of very enthusiastic Halloween people in the Parks Department, Mr. Downey, well done. And I think that is it. So thank you very much, Council, for doing that. Councillor Perry, if I may go to you, and we'll start with the items requesting separate discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one for me tonight, 1 sub 13.
1 sub 13. Thank you. Councillor Kim?
I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
I'll come back and get Councillor Humphreys in a minute. Councillor Abel? Thank you. Councillor Thompson? Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 2 delegations for 1 sub 2.
Okay. Councillor Rackus? Alrighty, so I've got 2 items and 1 sub 2, 1 sub 13. We'll have to move on then. If I could have a motion then to accept the items not requiring separate discussion. Councillor Abel, Councillor Thompson, all in favor? Contrary? That is carried. Thank you. We will move to delegations. The first delegation is Tyler Barker and Derek Bunn with respect to a motion from Councillor Abel. Mr. Barker, who's up first? Mr. Dunn?
I have to get my words in before Tyler does because he'll take the rest of your time. My time.
If I could ask you to, Mr. Bunn, to give us your name, your address, and we have 5 minutes. There's 2 speakers, so we'll
Sure.
allow a little latitude here.
My name is Derek Bunn. I'm from Baldwin, Ontario, which is just north of here. My family was raised in Aurora. My dad's 95 and still kicking, and he was around the 1920s, and very proud to be here representing his town. I'm here tonight to represent and to give you an idea of a wonderful project we're working on. It's called the Barrier-Free Fully Accessible Washroom Trailer. What this is a 2-unit model which can be lowered to the ground and accessible by people in wheelchairs. Inside the unit, it would have inside, let me see if I can go ahead here, oh maybe not, would be 2 change tables and 2 lift systems. So this is for young kids, they're for adults and for seniors who can't transfer themselves from their wheelchair onto a toilet. This is going to be something that really addresses people who are really physically challenged. So our goal is to purchase one of these to be exclusively used for, like I said, children, adults, and seniors who cannot use the existing kind of handicap washrooms that we see already in our community. It's to provide a respectful location, accommodation. I've been to a lot of events through my job in the school board and through a lot of community events and things like that just do not have the accommodations for us. We're lifting kids and seniors out and changing them on tables with pads on them and changing them on the floor and things like that. So we are looking to close the gap and making it more accessible and making it more something that brings us in the year 2016. And we're also, by doing this and having this in the community, it's for for the children and the adults and the seniors to get out in the community, to enjoy those street festivals, the jazz festivals, all those wonderful events that the councillors have brought up, and making them part of our community and live meaningful lives, whether you're a children, an adult, or a senior. So we're looking to have people in the community from community living organizations, nursing homes, all these different community placements such as Participation House, Safe Haven. They're all in our York region. But if you realize they're not getting out. A lot of people stay at home and not enjoy all the community events that are happening in York region. What's available right now, if you go to the Upper Canada Mall, you go to all the different events that happen throughout the year, the home shows, Victoria Days, Canada Day, all the street sales. There might be porta potties there might be accessible washrooms for people who can't transfer themselves out of a wheelchair, but there's nothing to help the severely handicapped people in our community. We have a cost of this. We've gone to a manufacturer in Ontario, in Etobicoke, and the price of this unit is $125,000. We've actively fundraised right now through the mayor of Whitchurch-Stouffville. He had a wedding, he got married, he's still married, and we were able to raise $50,000 so far. So we are well on our way of getting there, but we need your help. This is the layout of it. I'm going to go really fast. I'm looking at my time here. This is the layout. So it'll be two separate units, accessible, meeting all the OADA compliances. They'll go in. There's a change table as well as a toilet for those who can transfer themselves, but mainly it's for those who can't. It'll lower to the ground, so there's a ramp system, and it can be pulled by any sort of truck to a unit, to a facility, to an event, a festival or whatever, and it can be set up. And this is what is inside of each of it. There's a lift system, there's a sling, and there's an adult change table. There's a sink, toilet, air conditioning, so we can use throughout the spring, summer, and fall months, and a water tank for the taps, and hydro as well. These are some of the people in the community that have endorsed it, people that live in your community as well as York Region. There's a young lady from Whitchurch-Stillville named Liz. She likes to go to different events and share times with her friends. Another young lady, Victoria, spastic quadriplegic. She loves to get out as well and enjoy what's going on in the community, but she can't. This young lady, she's on the Accessibility Committee of Markham. She, again, endorses our trailer. This is my dad I was talking about, born and bred in Aurora. You might recognize him, no. And a young lady with cashmere. She has spastic cerebral palsy. She's right on the YRT bus, so you can see she wants to get out. She loves going to events and activities, but again, her parents, because of her seizure activity, because of her very unique needs a place where she can go and use the washroom.
Mr. Bunn, I could hold you for just a second.
Okay.
Councillor Abel, would you put forward? Thank you. Councillor, yeah. Councillor Thompson, all in favor? Contrary, it's carried. Mr. Bunn? Carry
Thank
on.
you.
5 more minutes, sir.
Thank you. So this is cashmere. So in her, this young lady, she she suffers from epileptic seizures in which she needs Valium at a certain time. She loves to go out in the community. She's got a great smile, loves the noise, the excitement of crowds and the fun, but her parents would like to have a place where she could use the washroom, change her, and also give her any medication that she needs because of her disability. This was a letter from the Community Living Executive Director in Newmarket Community Living, and they support over 300 people that have a developmental disability or physical disability, looking for support as well for this. Okay, I was going fast there. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Bunn. Are we going over to Tyler?
No, just quickly, this is going to be, I give all the credit to Mr. Bunn. He used to be my educational assistant, and I give all the credit to him, but this is going to be really helping people with disabilities. Stouffville has offered to store it, and they've really stepped up, so hopefully the region, Aurora, Newmarket, and other municipalities will step up too. Yeah, this is a great initiative, and maybe this will be a branch off to other new projects and new ideas. All the credit goes to Mr. Bunn.
Thank you. I think the idea is that it's very it's very expensive to change each location where an event is held, like a community center, like the Markham Fair, like the Upper Canada Mall, to have these specific equipment to be set up there. Markham Fair was looking for, was going to build onto it, but it would cost over $60,000, $70,000 for their location. So this washroom trailer, as Tyler had mentioned, would be Whitchurch-Stouffville has taken ownership of it. They said that they would house it and they would tow it to any event in York Region that would want it. So you would pay a fee, something like $500 for a weekend, so say the Jazz Festival or the Aurora Street Sale. You would go on, you would call them up, ask for it to be brought in. They would drive it over. There's no special permits for it because it's in a certain sort of dimensions that you wouldn't need any sort of permits each time you take it to another event. They would set it up. The people who would be obviously using it would have an understanding of how the equipment in the trailer would work. And then when the event is over, Whitchurch-Stouffville would come, take it back, have it and basically the cost of it is just to clean it, to maintain it. The manufacturer said that it would, once they make it, it would last 25 years. So to have a trailer like that, that could be shared through Newmarket, Aurora, Richmond Hill, Markham, everything, could be fully booked from spring, summer, fall, and would be greatly used by those people who have been so neglected in our communities over the last so many years.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bunn. May I first have a motion to receive the presentation, Councillors Abel and Gartner. Comments or questions for Mr. Bunn? Councillor Gartner, Councillor Abel, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bunn. I thought this was a great idea when I first heard about it, and I'm glad to see we're getting closer to the reality. You mentioned that it's going to be up to the AODA standards. I believe there are new standards coming in 2017. It will comply with those as well?
Yes.
Great.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for the presentation. I was at a Festival of Festivals, which is the York region, where all the festivals got together, and you presented at that location. And you spoke to it being used in each sort of municipality. And I just wanted to comment that all the festivals that were there, and there were the Markham, the Newmarket Jazz Festival, and there was about 10 of us there, all bought in on the idea that, of course, we would pay a little extra to have that there, and it would fit into the budget, and what a wonderful idea to be so inclusive. So you've got the buy-in from the community and the festival organizers. We just need a little support in the funding, so I was very pleased to bring this forward. I did want to ask that you are quite involved in special needs, and you, along with Mr. Pilkey, were part of the Magna Special Needs Lunch. And if you could take a minute just to explain.
It wasn't just a lunch, Mr. Abel. It was a hoedown. It was a special needs hoedown. So Mr. Pilkey and I, we both work for the York Region District School Board. We approached Magna because Magna has their tent up so early, and we thought, you know what, we're going to approach them. And so I went to Dollarama and got a couple of cowboy hats, and I said, Dave, let's go and ask them. And we're going to ask them for a student hoedown, and what it's going to be is for a hoedown for every special need kid in York Region. So we went there, and I said, what do we have to lose? Just lose our pride? And it was fine. We walked in, and they totally embraced the idea, and they were so accepting of it. They said, we'll give you the food, the entertainment, and the tent. You tell us how you want to run. So they were so open to it. So last year was our first year. We had 760 kids with disabilities. And this year we had 945 in attendance at the hoedown. So it was an incredible way to kick off hoedown weekend, which I'm calling it. And it was also the best time the organizers ever had.
I can speak that it was a fabulous event. Councillor Marakis, of course, was there, and I'm sure he would share the same sentiments. But this is the idea of where that trailer would come in handy, because
it would.
We do provide for those that have that don't need something like this. But for this sort of event, that comfort level, it's just fantastic. So.
And it is a comfort level, like you mentioned, because a lot of people, a lot of parents with kids with disabilities don't venture to go out in the community because they don't know what accommodations are out there. And I like to help them feel more comfortable in our community. And I like them to be accessing the community. I like the kids in my class and the kids that I've worked with over the years come to these events because they're so excited to be part of our community. But the accommodations are just not there. So they're coming. Their parents are coming, their caregivers are coming, and if you want to look at it as a business sense, this is a small donation to have people enjoying your event and contributing economically to your event.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for the presentation. I certainly think it's a worthwhile venture. You spoke about the fact that Whitchurch Somerville would be sort of taking ownership of it, or at least managing the process, and it'd be shared amongst the other municipalities in York Region. One of the things that I've come to realize is that it's not unusual for multiple municipalities to have events on the same day. Has there been any discussion about how those kind of scheduling conflicts, or how it would be dealt with if 3 or 4 municipalities are all looking for the trailer on the same day when, events are,
we buy more than one, sir.
Sorry?
We buy more than one, sir.
True, that we can all have our own, true.
I think we'd have to really sit down and share it in a nice way. I mean, obviously, there's going to be some conflict over it, but you know what? If the need is there and the community actually rallies up and says, we really need this, I think we're looking at a second trailer and a third trailer and something really amazing happening in our community.
Great, thank you.
But there are conflicts for sure, yes.
Councilor Humphries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm sorry, I did hear when I was back at another situation, but thank you so much for your advocacy, and heard lots of tremendous things about you, and you are chair of the Accessibility Committee, and I'm so excited about this idea, Councillor, with the motion forward, and I mean, we just need to do it, and I can't wait to have like a lineup of, or an order that we need like 2 or 3 of these for every community, because absolutely inclusivity this is what it's all about. And I had the joy of attending the Magna Special Needs hoedown, which was a hoedown. It was a party. It was so much fun. I think I had to get tired getting sick after that.
It was great.
It was so
Thank you
much
so
fun
much.
and just a joy to be there. And I think the more that we can do like this, the better. So I'm looking forward to speaking to the motion tonight and just pushing it through. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think the most exciting thing about this is that this is only a picture of the outside of it. This is not even built in North America. There is nothing like this in North America yet. So if York Region is able to make one, and we would have the media there for ribbon cutting, and of course our chair of the Accessibility Committee there, we would just be opening up the door to Canada and go, look at York Region. Look what we've just done. Follow us.
Councilor Perry.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson had my first question, but another question. The ownership, is it going to be a York Region owned? Is it a school board owned, or is it a Town of Wichita-Stouffville owned? Or
We asked the York Region to own it. We went to meetings with them, and they really didn't want to buy in the whole idea. They actually kind of put it back on our plates and said, well, let's see what you can do. And so that kind of left us kind of, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? How is this going off the ground? And we're just so happy that Wichita-Stouffville said, you know what, this isn't a hard thing to figure out. It's a small thing when you see the mass of people that this is going to affect. So they said that we would own it, and then through the operational costs that would pay for the insurance, pay for the licensing and everything like that.
thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no other comments or questions, all in favor of receiving the presentation? Delegation, pardon me, contrary? That's carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Bunn.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is with respect to the USPCA contract renewal, Sherry Hall and Brad Heppel from Canine Pest Management Group. If you could give us your name and an address, and you have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm Brad Heppel. We're from Alliston, Ontario, and this is Sherry Hall, my partner, both from Alliston. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity this evening. Canine Pest Management Group is a company that we've been operating for many years. One of the sectors of our business is providing animal control. We've been in that line of work for the last 10 years. Our vision is to encourage a safe, healthy, vibrant community for people and their pets through development, education, and compliance of bylaws that reflect community values. That is something that is quite important to us. We both Sherry herself was one of the first people to graduate from the veterinarian technician course. She has been involved with animals her entire life. I myself, prior to retirement, I spent 38 years in municipal government. So those two pieces coming together has been beneficial for us and for our clients. We started out servicing the town of New Tecumseh, which is where we're from. That was a population of 30,000 people. Over the past 10 years, we've now grown to service 6 municipalities with a population of close to 250,000 people. On top of that, those 6 we service for animal control. On top of that, we also hold the pound contracts for the town of Innisfil and the town of Bradford, and we are the backup pound for the town of Georgina. We're a privately owned company. There's 2 of us involved. You need answers, you need changes. It's not a big deal. It's 1 phone call. We're available. We're very quick to set new directions when we have to. We use up-to-date software that keeps track of all of our cases that we have going, and it allows us to provide very detailed reports to our clients. We understand the need in municipal government these days. Animal control can be a hefty cost for different municipalities. One of the ways to offset that is through your licensing programs and your bylaw enforcement and fine generation. We try to keep a very good balance to keep residents happy and to keep some income coming back to the town from their animal control contracts. One of the things we've been very successful with over the years is providing a very seamless transition. We're relatively new in the game. We've taken over some municipalities from other contracts. We've been able to do that without the residents actually even realizing it's a different provider. Some of the services that we provide currently is the animal care and control. We do livestock valuation. A lot of our clients are rural, where there are coyote attacks and taking out sheep and so on. We're certified for wildlife control. We do have technical large animal emergency rescue certifications. We're trained and carded in animal disaster response. We do goose control services for many municipalities throughout southern Ontario. Everything from egg oiling and egg deprivation to control populations to providing border collie patrols to keep the geese dispersed. One of our more interesting pieces of the business is canine detection services. Currently, we're doing most of our work in that is bed bug detection, and we typically do commercial and large properties for that. We have a dog training and event center at our property, which is about 5 acres, and we do boarding and quarantine services. The quarantine services is for dogs that have been quarantined due to bites and rabies control. Our mission is to fairly apply and enforce animal control bylaws for residents of the municipality, both for the human and the animal side. Our main competitor's mission is to facilitate and provide for province-wide leadership on matters relating to the prevention of cruelty to animals and promotion of animal welfare.
Mr. Heppel, can I get you to wrap up, please?
Sure can.
Thank you.
Our staffing background is basically we try and look at 2 different areas, law enforcement, animal related. We strive to achieve a high level of customer service, and our ACOs work as a team. They rely on each other throughout the day and throughout the evening. We are members of the Association of Animal Shelter Administrators. Sherry has just recently been nominated to sit on the board of directors for that group, which oversees and plans for shelter administrations throughout Ontario. We comprehend, we know what the issues are in shelter management these days, and we want to have our say and help direct that so that we can better it. What we see as options and what we hope will be options from being able to present to you this evening is one of 2 things. We've been looking at the animal control contract in Aurora for many years. We found out that it was being renewed. We would like the opportunity to bid on that. So it'd be nice for the town to issue a new tender for the animal control services. Or another option is we did win a tender with Town of Newmarket that included Newmarket, Stouffville, Georgina in 2013. That tender is available for backup and piggyback on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A motion to receive and refer, please. Councilors Humphreys and Peary, comments or questions for the delegates, please? Councilor Gardner, Councilor Kim.
Thank you for coming. As you probably know, this was on our general committee last week for decision tonight, so it's a little bit late in the process. But did you have a chance to speak to our staff about your proposal?
Very briefly. We've been waiting for the tender to come out this year because we knew it was coming out to tender this year. We found out while we were on holidays that it was going to be re-awarded for another year. And that's when we got involved and sent in a notice to the staff, to the clerk's department.
Thank you. And we do have a report from our staff already in place. Thank you.
Councilor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the delegate, your presentation stated that the two of you are the only employees of Canine Management, and there was a bullet point at the end where you employ local residents. Can you explain the operating structure of your organization, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The presentation said we are the owners of the company. We are not the only staff. We, depending on the time of year, we employ anywhere from 14 to 20 staff members. With that, we have broken the company, as far as the animal control portion of it, into what we call the South 3 and the North 3. We have two very distinct areas up where we live and down in this section. We have an animal control supervisor located within the Southern 3, and we have an animal control supervisor for the North 3.
Councilor? Councilor Abel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The operation, we're looking at 40 hours a week in our contract right now. Do you provide, is that part of what you would provide? Like, what kind of hours would you provide?
If we looked at the contract we currently have here in the south, we provide 45 hours a week of patrol times in each municipality for 8 months of the year. For the other 4 months of the year, we provide 78 hours. And then on top of that, we have 24-hour service.
Weekends, evenings?
Weekends and evenings, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Gardner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the information we got that's on our agenda, the delegation request, it said you would like the opportunity to submit a proposal and pricing to provide animal control services. So that's just the animal control services piece?
We would love to be able to provide for both shelter and animal control.
Thank you.
Councilor Thompson, Councilor Marcus.
Thank you. Within the options you presented, you said one of them is to be able to piggyback off a contract that you have with Newmarket based upon receiving the same patrol hours and pricing. Can you give us an idea of what that contract is worth with Newmarket on an annual basis, just so we have some sort of figure as comparisons when we talk?
Currently, well, it's open up for public, but basically the patrol portion of it is $146,000 a year.
Councilor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming. It was mentioned that you mentioned that it's 24-hour service. Does that also include wildlife control?
Yes, it does. Okay. Each municipality we service requests a different level of service when it comes to wildlife and after-hour service. So we gear it according to what their wishes are.
So I guess as a follow-up through you, Mr. Chair, the Newmarket one, does that include the after-hours wildlife control service?
When it is on public property and injured, correct. It
But
does.
not on private property?
Not unless it is an injured animal,
Okay.
sick or injured,
Thank
and then
you.
we take care of it.
If there's no other comments or questions, then all in favor of receiving the delegation? Contrary? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll
Thank
be
you.
discussing this shortly. The third delegation is from the OSPCA. Maureen Barkley and Dan Merrill also on the same subject. And we'll try and keep it to 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Maureen Barkley. I live in Schaumburg, but I am the Animal Control Supervisor for the Ontario SPCA. And we have provided animal control services for the town of Aurora since January of 2008. Our officers enforce the town's animal control bylaws, including leash laws, licensing and barking, as well as ensuring the standards of care for dogs meet the town's requirements. We also impound stray cats and dogs and provide sheltering services at our facility until the owner reclaims their animal, or failing that, until a suitable home can be found. Any sick or injured wildlife reported by the town's residents is removed and, wherever possible, is transported to a licensed wildlife rehabilitator for care. Our officer conducts regular park patrols to ensure compliance with stoop and scoop and leash laws. He also investigates dog bite cases, which can ultimately result in charges under the Dog Owners Liability Act. There is an officer on duty for a total of 40 hours a week to provide these services, and in addition we operate a call centre that is available to residents 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, to assist with any animal-related inquiries, including dealing with conflicts with wildlife. We also have an on-call service for emergencies, such as injured domestic animals, and requests from police for assistance. Our officers' attendance at Paws in the Park this year was very well received by the participants, and he will be taking on a more integral part in the preparations for next year's event. Our records indicate that in 2015, our officers handled a total of 393 cases. Of these, 162 were bylaw enforcement, 117 wildlife, and stray animals accounted for 114. The domestic animals that are placed in our state-of-the-art shelter receive exemplary care for the duration of their stay. Every animal is given a thorough health check, is fully vaccinated and spayed or neutered before being made available for adoption. Having access to our shelters across the province allows us to transfer animals to another shelter should we need additional space. Our records for this year to August 31st indicate that a total animals, 118 animals from Aurora were impounded, 25 were reunited with their owners, and homes were found for another 57. The average length of stay in the shelter is 13.4 days. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding our services, and I have along with me Dan Merrill, who is your Aurora officer, who would be willing to answer anything that I'm not able to.
Thank you. May I first have a motion to receive the delegation, please? Councillor Perry, Councillor Kim. Comments or questions for the delegates, please? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. We've certainly kept within 5 minutes. Just to be clear, the contract we have with you now, and that we've had all along, is animal control, shelter, adoption, wildlife. Is that also on public and private property?
Public and private.
Public and private. 24-hour call service. Where is the shelter located, please?
Well, actually, it's now classified as Whitchurch Stouffville, but it's on Woodbine Avenue, just north of St. John's Side Road.
Thank you. I think that's all.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor of receipt of the delegation, then, please? Contrary, that's carried. Thank you. We'll be discussing this shortly. Thank you very much. And our last delegate, I don't think we have anything up on the screen, do we? Oh, right there. Mr. Hurd. Mr. Hurd, if you give us your name, address, and you have 5 minutes, sir.
Yeah, David Hurd, and it's 15 Ransom Street here in Aurora. I would like to speak to you, Mr. Mayor, and members of council tonight in regards to Councillor Kim's motion in regards to cultural partners. I read the motion and I found that it's, in my interpretation, it seemed to be a two-parter. In the meat of it, it spoke to the identification of the cultural partners in the community. The last part of it I read that it referred to, referring to the CAO to investigate other options and other potential partners within the community. I started to think back that, in my opinion, and I know after being here at the Cultural Precinct meeting last week, there was a chatter, quite a lot, about our museum and as to its location and where it was and et cetera. There seemed to be a lot of answers that people wanted about that. So my point to that was is the how are our cultural partners, how they came into play, I think is important in this equation. We have the Cultural Master Plan, and then from that, the Cultural Roundtable. And that Cultural Roundtable, as we know, Farmers Market, Library, Cultural Center, Historical Society. And I know there was another, I don't know if you call them a community partner, because I believe that the strongest cultural partners begin in-house. And I believe one of those strong cultural partners would be your curator, Shauna White, at the Aurora Museum and Archives. So if we look at that historically, how these partners came into place. I'll give you two examples. For one is we go into the archives and see an article from the Banner as to a donation from Wimpy Homes, a check donation for the Hillary House and Koffler Museum of Medicine, and a second check donation for proceeds going to a museum at the Church Street School location. During all that time, we've had a sign at the Yonge and Wellington pointing to the museum prior to the hiring of Shauna White. So the intent was clearly a museum in that location. I know that there's been an issue with the person wanting to join the Cultural Roundtable. That was brought up actually during the Cultural Precinct meeting. So I have a concern about inclusivity into the current cultural partnerships. I believe 100% that if this process is going to be successful, we heard the word transparency at the Cultural Precinct meeting over and over. And transparency, I believe, must include any history involved in how we got to where we are. And how Aurora got to where it is a massive story. It is a huge story. It is a globally successful story. And that story does not belong in one room of a building that $3 million, I think it was raised for. That story is big enough to include other components. Why did I develop a successful ghost tour? Because some people think history's boring. If you wrap heritage and history, which is part of culture, around other things, it becomes magnificent. I mean, if we're going to identify cultural partners, I would love to be a cultural partner. I've been working on a project with some other people for some 4 years now to do with the music scene and music history. And that just increased today with gaining an asset from the former president of Bullseye Records Canada and the author of the Canadian Music Encyclopedia. I am doing this because I would love to be a cultural partner. So I think history is important in this. Inclusivity is important in this. And the assets in culture should belong to the corporation of the town of Aurora, because there is money to be made from this too. And I don't think we're managing our assets well right now with the way some of the buildings, et cetera, are being utilized. So thank you for the motion, Councillor Kim. I think it's great that this is coming forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurd. May I have a motion to receive the presentation, please? Councillor Humphrey, Councillor Perry, comments or questions from Mr. Hurd? Seeing none, all in favor of receipt? Contrary, that's carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Hurd. That's it for the delegations. We'll move to items. There's two. There's the OSPCA contract renewal. I apologize. I'm out of practice, obviously. Councillor Gartner, you pulled that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move it.
I'm sorry?
I will move it.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Maracas. Comments or questions on the item, please?
I was reading the delegation request, and it did have here that they were asking to provide animal control services to the town. So I spoke with staff to find out, if they had any information, if they also provided shelter services, etc. And staff hadn't had any conversations with the provider, at least till this afternoon, as far as I know. So I have a lot of questions, and they can't be answered. In particular, the 11% reduction in contracted services costs, I don't know if that's just based on animal control. I don't know how it compares apples and apples to the SPCA contract. So my feeling is that, and as I said to you last week, animal control services are difficult to provide effectively and respectfully. And the council in 2004 certainly found that out. The residents were not happy with the services. We did have to change the provider. Staff did the research, and of the options presented, we picked the SPCA and the OSPCA. And as far as I know, they've been doing a good job for us. Particularly, we're in a situation where there's one more year, hopefully one more year to tender the contract before the N6 comes to a conclusion, or at least to options about how the control and shelter should work or could work for all of our communities. I don't think this is the time to be changing service providers. I think that we should stick with a service that's tried and true, that has done well for the town, and especially as we don't know that much, and staff doesn't know that much about the new potential provider.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. Through you to Ms. Van Leeuwen. Ms. Van Leeuwen, one of the options that the delegate presented was the possibility of piggybacking on the Newmarket contract from 2013. I'm just wondering if you had any conversations with Newmarket or given any thought to that possibility before putting forth a recommendation to continue with the OSPCA.
Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We have not had conversations with Newmarket. I can advise that the piggyback clause would be for the provision of animal control only and not for shelter services. Newmarket shelter services provided through Georgina, and hence the reason that we're participating in the N6 initiative on the shelter study.
Thank you. Follow-up questions through you, Mr. Mayor. To Ms. Van Leeuwen, if I'm understanding you correctly, therefore, we would have had to look for alternative shelter services, whereas the OSPCA is offering everything all under one roof, so to speak. Is that correct?
Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. We'd have to go out for competitive process on shelter services, whereas the OSPCA is providing both control and shelter.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. I was under the impression, reading the background, that it was an N6 initiative. And so I'm just finding out now that Newmarket is not part of the N6 coverage. So am I understanding correctly, there's 5 municipalities that are in this and Newmarket is not?
Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Newmarket is part of the N6 initiative. They currently use Georgina for shelter service. They use K9 for control service, as do East Gwillimbury and Georgina, I believe. So this N6 initiative is to look at shelter services and possibly a broader scope, because there is a possibility for shared resources on control, things like that. So there's a study that's underway now. It includes all Northern 6 municipalities.
Councillor? Well, sort of my comment is if I get it right, there's the shelter service, and then there's the actual patrol and the enforcement that goes along with it. And Newmarket has decided to split that, whereas we have it under one. Would that be correct? Ms. Anlon. It's not a comment, it's a question now, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. That's correct. That's not unusual. There's a few of the municipalities who have control services with one agency and shelter service with another.
So that's something of a learning curve for me, because I wasn't aware that that was a possibility. So this might be something that we would look at when we renew a contract or services for a year, and so that we're awarding this, and now I'm finding out that there was alternatives, and so I wasn't aware of that until now, until the delegate came. So I appreciate that, because sometimes you can get the best service at the best price, and that's what RFPs, and that's our process. So I'll wait for some other questions from other delegates. I've been calling. Councilors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ms. Van Leeuwen. Ms. Van Leeuwen, we've all come to the understanding that it's that Newmarket is split. I'm just wondering, and I appreciate the fact that you might not know this answer. Do you know how much they're paying for the shelter service? I mean, we do know that they're paying the $140 for the animal service, but I'm just wondering if we can kind of get a figure and just come to a realization of how much for the full amount,
Ms. Anlon?
the full service.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have, the cost of the shelter, I believe, 2015 was about $160,000 for Newmarket. And then animal control was about $140,000, so about $300,000.
So, okay, so thank you. So they're paying $300,000 for the same service that we're going to be paying $211,000 for. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if it's exactly the same service. There might be some slight differences between wildlife, hours of patrol, that type of thing. The value-added services that possibly the shelter may have. So, but it is a combination of control and shelter service.
Thank you. So I guess we're getting a pretty good deal, actually. So I'm kind of the same lines as Councilor Gardner. I don't think this is the time for us to step out. I think we just renew the contract, and then we wait for the N6 initiative to kick in and look at how we can collaborate with everyone and get together and come up with the best possible service for our residents. Thank you.
Councilor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Ms. Van Leeuwen. Part of this contract is for additional services representing additional hours. Have you had any feedback from residents regarding the last push over the last couple of months for having increased monitoring and other services? Any resident feedback?
Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Through you, Mr. Chair, could you just clarify the question? Are you speaking of the OSPCA contract, or?
Yes, the OSPCA contract stipulates that there's a recommendation to spend another $45,000 approximately for additional hours of service. So in speaking to that, I just want to know what the feedback was from residents from the additional services that we provided in the last couple of months or so of summer.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are recommending that consideration be given in the 27 budget process for additional patrols. In 2016, we had our bylaw officers augment and do extra patrols on the trails and in the parks to augment the service. We are seeing an increase in other calls and other issues bylaw related. So in order to provide the same level of service that we provided in 2016, we're suggesting in 2017, we look at increased patrols. You know, we receive from time to time concerns to which we respond to. We have been providing additional trail patrols, and I do believe that that does have an impact, because when you have an officer on the trails, people respond to that.
Councilor?
Thank you.
Councillor Carter, second time?
Thank you for clarification, either to Ms. Van Leeuwen or Ms. Crawford. In September 2015, the big issue that came up was an owner who had a dog off leash, and one of our residents was injured, not exactly from the dog, but as she was trying to get away from the dog, she fell and really hurt herself. So is that the issue that's generating the need or the ask for the increased service? Perhaps Ms. Crawford, through you, Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Crawford?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it was only one incident. We do have incidents that are ongoing, and as we've been augmenting the OSPCA services, we've recognized the need for increased patrols to stop something like that from continuing to happen. And as Ms. Van Leeuwen said, when there's an officer in the park or on the trail, people do comply with the bylaw. It's just the way it is.
Follow-up, please. So even though there is clear signage that dogs have to be on leash and that there will be fines, if that is not the case, that doesn't seem to be a deterrent. Through you, Mr. Mayor?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can't speak for the people who are out on the trail. We do have occasion where we have people who, regardless of whether they've been caught or not, don't agree with having their dogs on leash. So we have been using enforcement after education and have had quite a number of tickets issued as a result.
Thank you. And final question to Ms. Van Leeuwen. Dogs off leash in public places, except for our dog park, it can be a serious issue. Do we have control over the fine that we charge? Can we charge any amount of money that we want?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, they are set fines. However, we could apply to the courts to increase the fines, and they would be subject to approval through the court system.
And do you think, through you, Mr. Mayor, with that, do you think that that would be an extra deterrent? I mean, we can't patrol all of our trails. We have a huge trail system. Do you think a larger fine would be a deterrent?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I suppose it could be. It would have to be within reason, as they are subject to approval through the courts. They are considerable at this point in time, and Ms. Crawford may be able to speak to the amount of a fine for dog off leash. I don't have that off the top of my head, but I'm certain she may have that information.
Ms. Crawford, do you have that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the fine after surcharges is around $305 at this point in time.
For the first time?
We're kind of straying here from what the report.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you. I was just trying to figure out if we could save money by charging more money to the people who do not conform to our bylaws.
Councillor Maracos, second time. Councillor Abel, second.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mentioned this last week, but since there might be some residents watching, I don't know how many, but through you to Ms. Van Leeuwen, we've actually had a couple instances where raccoons now have been on private property, and I'm just wondering if you could relay that message on if they are posing a threat or a danger to the residents, that we do go out and help out with the situation.
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we do respond where there's a danger to a person's health and safety or a danger to other animals. The OSPCA will respond 24 hours to emergency services.
Thank you, and just as follow, and that's even after hours, and so because there was that, I guess we're going to work on that communication piece, as we mentioned, because the residents did call in and they were just told flat out that no one's coming. They don't deal with it after hours. So I just, if we can get that communication out there for the residents to understand that if there is that danger or that need, that we will go out and help out.
Councillor Abel.
The amount that we're approving is the 215,000, which includes the little bit of extra to CPI, plus the 45,000 for the hours, to increase those number of hours. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, we are recommending that the additional patrol hours and the additional cost of 45,000 be considered through the budget process.
And at the budget, we'll be considering 215,000 plus 45,000?
So,
Through you, Mr. Chair, if you approve the recommendation here tonight, you will be approving the one-year contract at $211,530,000 plus CPI.
Yes.
And then we will consider the additional 45,000 during the budget process because it does have a budget impact.
Okay. And I'm fine. I just want to be clear, because if it's 300,000 for Newmarket, it's larger. It's a larger area. There's more incidents, and at 300,000, and if we're going to be approaching 260,000, it's relatively the same for the same service. I just wanted to get an idea in the report. So it's two pieces. We're going to approve the 211 plus the marginal increase, and then we're going to recommend that a budget we consider 45,000 so that we can relieve the pressure to staff that is already doing work due to increased patrol, and that largely is dogs off leash and trails and thereabouts. Thank you.
there's no more comments, then calling the vote. All in favor? Contrary? That is carried. Councillor?
I know this doesn't follow procedure, but there has been an update on the gas leak. I'm just wondering, maybe we might want to announce what's going on, because there's been some evacuations in the side streets, and that they are, if you don't mind, I can just read what the CYFS has sent out. They just, Wellington Street East is now closed from Wells Street to Industrial Parkway in both directions, as well as side streets. Residents are being evacuated while repairs are ongoing. A bus has been provided for the area residents to take shelter if needed, and Enbridge estimates it will take approximately 2 to 3 hours to conduct and locate, excavate, and fix the leak.
Thank you. There's a gas leak in the area of the tracks at Wellington, yeah, the main train tracks. Okay, we'll move to item 1 sub 13, please, which is speed bumps. Councillor Perry? For me? Okay. Would someone care to put that on the floor? Councillor Abel, thank you. Is there a second? Councillor Kim? Councillor Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, time and time again, we do our best to keep our costs in line, and now with this motion, we're choosing to go over budget on a matter where we know that there's a very high likelihood that if we proceeded, when we proceed with most of our tenders over the winter, that those additional costs wouldn't be taking place. So for that reason, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted my opportunity to vote against it, and I'd like a recorded vote, please.
Thank you, sir. Other speakers, please. Calling the vote, then. All in favor of the motion on the floor? Pardon me? I'm sorry, I apologize, Councillor Perry. Record vote, Madam Clerk.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Mayor Daw?
Yes.
Councillor Maracas?
Yes.
Councillor Peary?
No.
Councillor Abel?
Yes.
Councillor Gartner?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys? Councillor Kim?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That finishes the items. We have moved to motions. First up is Councillor Kim's. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the motion as is, please.
Second, Councillor Abel. Back to you, Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify, so this motion will take place in 2 steps. The first step is for the CAO to identify who our cultural partners are based on set criteria. And in that first step, once they are identified, there will be dialogue between the CAO and the cultural partners and residents and any other stakeholders that wish to take part in the discussions. And after that first step, we fathom that by the end of November will be adequate time for his dialogue with the cultural partners. He will have sufficient background to formulate the mandate or the objective of his task. And once he has that mandate, the second part of it will be to fulfill that mandate, and that will be completed by March 31st, hopefully, of next year. And he has, if he feels that a third-party consultant would help him in this task, then he has the freedom to do so. It doesn't have to be a cultural expert per se. It may very well be a organizational engineer or architect or someone who likes to or who is good at looking at the operational efficiencies of organizations. So that's the 2-step process. The reason why I asked the CAO to quarterback this investigation is because he's fairly new to the town, and he doesn't have any built-up relationships that would impede him or impede his objectivity in any way. And so I thought that he would be the best candidate to oversee this. So in my mind, what do I hope to achieve? I mean, I like to see and hear what the CAO finds out in its initial discussions. But when I was crafting the motion, there are 4 things that I would consider as objectives. And one is to review organizational structure, the division of space, relationships, and identifying operational synergies. Cultural. I found that when I was doing my own research and investigation with respect to cultural partners, I found a lot about the town of Aurora. There's still some fractured relationships, whether they be on political boundaries or whether they be cultural, but there are cultural relationship issues that I think need to be put in the past, and we need to move forward as one Aurora to make Aurora a great place to live and play, as we say. And it was interesting, and part of what makes Aurora interesting and what creates our identity is our culture, our history, our heritage, whatever you want to call it. And culture plays a huge role in our enjoyment of life here and how others perceive us. And we talk about tourism in terms of the viability of Aurora as a cultural tourist destination, and we certainly want that. At the Multicultural Festival, I was talking to one of the library staff, and she gave me, and we were talking about this topic, and she gave me great insight. And I asked her, how do you perceive our Auroran identity? And she said, you know what, Councillor Kim, I don't think we actually have an identity. Our identity is still evolving. I dare say that our identity may not be, it's an evolving thing that we may not know what that is until 10, 15 years down the road. And And as I was looking across Ada Johnson Park and I saw the different cultures being represented, and you see a different cultural landscape, that is part of our future identity. And that has to be part of the strategy all our cultural partners have to incorporate into their strategy. And I know as part of the library board, I know we're doing that, and I'm sure that the others are as well. But we need to take it to the next level, and I hope that part of the investigation will incorporate our changing cultural landscape as well. And in terms of who are our cultural partners, one of the things that I was exposed to this year is just the many cultural events, whether they be through music or song or dance, and the many volunteers that make it successful. And I would certainly hope that perhaps when we look at the Aurora Winter Blues Festival, we saw how quickly the Tragically Hip concert came about, and it was a huge success. Dance in the Park or any other event for that matter. I dare say that is also that those organizations, although they're organized by perhaps different groups, that could be housed under one cultural partner. So there are a lot of things, and sports would be included as well, I believe, and I'll leave that to Mr. Cieo to find out for himself. So those are the things that I would like to see happen. And I talked about division of space. Mr. Hurd talked about the museum occupying the space at the Aurora Cultural Center. I would like to see all the cultural partners succeed. And at this time, we don't know whether there is an output gap or there is deficiency in resources. We don't know that. And I know at last year, when we were going through our 2016 budget, I said that we need predictable funding for our cultural partners in order for them to vision cast well into the future, and in order for them to be successful, they need to have that predictable funding. And this year, as part of our finance advisory committee, we started conducting due diligence in all our departments. We just finished Parks and Rec, and we'll move on to infrastructure next. And it's been a great exercise in finding out where there are opportunities for efficiencies, opportunities where we need to provide more resources in order for them to be successful. And given that we're doing this due diligence for town departments, it would make sense that we would do the same for our cultural partners, whom we also provide annual operational funding and funding for other aspects as well, and also allowing them to use our resources, our facilities, our staff. And so it was just a natural progression from the Finance Advisory Committee doing due diligence that we also extend that. And make no mistake, this is not about cutting funds or cutting resources. It's about wanting to give them as much as they need to make them successful. And the cultural experience is about the customer experience. Like any other business, you focus on the experience, then the revenues, the traction, that will all follow. And so by no means is this going to be a 1 or 2 year task. It may be a multi-year task to uncover, where we are at with the cultural partners. But that's the evolution of how I came to the motion, and so it's there, and I look forward to receiving comments.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. I have Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Thank you for bringing this motion forward, Councillor Kim. And I wanted to give you a shout to talk a little bit more about it, but again, I have been under the weather this last couple of weeks. But I think it's the intent that I understand is really to just clarify who the cultural partners are that we support from a financing or funding perspective. And the bottom line for me is to ensure that it really is to support the growth and the visions of these cultural groups, and then almost sounds like finding maybe economies of scale, which is fine if there's duplication in programming and things of that nature. We'll find gaps and maybe be able to work closer together to build those partnerships with eventually. Is that what your sort of intent is in a way? Sorry, Mr. Mayor, through Mr. Mayor, is that okay if I get that clarification so then I can ask my next question?
Well, that's part of it. I think because a lot of people, because I'm on the finance committee, people think this is an exercise in cost cutting, but that's not necessarily the case. I think when I look at the museum, for instance, being a VSK, variety store kid, my parents were Korean. Not surprisingly, perhaps, they had a variety store, and I worked in it every day since I was 4. And it's when you're only going to sell one bottle of shampoo and you just stick one bottle in there, it doesn't look very enticing. So you have to fill the whole shelf. And I find that with the museum, you have one room and you're filling all of the Aurora collection. And I wonder, is that really enticing to attract people? And at the same time, I know that the Aurora Cultural Center they need as much space as possible as well. And so let's resolve those space issues so that they can live up to their full potential and provide Aurora residents programming that I think they're capable of delivering. And over a course of a few years, we may find out after this a resource provision that we don't need this or that, but we won't find out and we won't have this end to this cultural equation or this question until we get on this path. So I think in a few years we'll find that answer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you. I really appreciate that, and I think that I understand the intent, and I think it's a good, very good approach to making sure that again, the visions of these groups come to fruition and hopefully even better than ever imagined. So I believe this is the right start, absolutely, and looking forward to what CEO will come back with in terms of approach, in terms of reference. Just a couple of things. First of all, your point about the museum, I'm very interested in that piece, and I know that I had asked for it to come forward in budget to talk about when we can bring forward the plans of our curator, and I think that has a lot to do with what you've put on the table here in terms of what, how we can get to where these groups want to go for the benefit of our community and to for all our residents to enjoy. So I'm looking forward to that for sure. The only one I wanted to mention in terms of just from a legislative perspective is the library board. The library board for me, which I do believe is a cultural partner and of sorts, they are a legislative part of how government runs their services, and I really want to make sure that they continue to be quite independent, because from my personal experience on the library board, which I really enjoyed, there are other municipalities out there that have unfortunately suffered a lot of things because of structural changes and allowing council to be right in with the library board and making decisions in terms of where they're spending their money and so on and so forth. And I really believe that's up to the board and CEO of the board and the committee of that nature. And we really need to entrust that, that part of, I believe, a cultural partner. I still think it's a great idea that part of the table and joining this review and have understanding of that. But I just want to make sure we don't jeopardize some of the great work we've done. We've been spoiled. I've been into some of the Solus meetings and hear some of the challenges in other communities across Ontario, and I didn't realize how wonderful we had it. I mean, we love the library, but in terms of what other communities are going through compared to ours, and I can put Oshawa up there, but I won't, and others. So I just want to make sure that whatever we do continues to, each one of these cultural groups have their visions and have their business plans. And I just want to make sure that when we do get together and amalgamate or look at this whole partnership, that again, we just try to honor the business plans and visions of these groups. But otherwise, yes, I'm in support of the motion.
Thank you. I've got Councillors Thompson and Abel.
Thank you. Through you to Councillor Kim. Councillor Kim, in your interpretation of cultural partners, do you envision the library as being part of this process?
Councillor Kim?
You know, that will be up to the CEO to decide. In my mind, I believe they sell culture, and so they are a cultural partner. Immediately, where I think we can have more dialogue on is on the Lebovic or Magna rooms. I believe that still is under the auspices of the town. Part of the motion is about space, division of space, and the relationships. And so, I would to answer your question, yes, I believe that the Aurora Library Board or library is part of the cultural landscape and our partner.
Thank you. Last term, we went through a service level review, and so I agree it's always important for us to review existing delivery models, look at alternative approaches, not just cultural programs and services, but in all aspects. And there was value in doing it last term, and I think that through your motion, there's value in exploring it again. However, I do have concerns when it comes to the library. The library is governed by the Ontario Public Libraries Act. I do see them separately from some of the other cultural partners that we support. And again, to draw an analogy with the service level review, what came out of the service level review was a sort of a dividing line between services that some were viewed as core and some were viewed as discretionary. And I would say that for most of our cultural partners, this council or previous councils have made a choice whether or not to support it, either through the provision of space or through the provision of dollars. But I see the library as a core service. I think that there's a mandate for us to support them. And I'm concerned that the process by which it's laid out here is not necessarily as collaborative as I'd like. I'd like to see, those cultural partners actually have input and be part of the discussion around possible alternative approaches or looking at, economies of scale or existing delivery models. So, I'll support the motion as it stands now, but if it comes back with some significant alterations to how the library board and how the library itself functions, I will not be supportive of it.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you, and I appreciate the comments, and I appreciate the notice of motion, the motion which notice has been given. And I appreciate Councillor Kim extending his time to reach out and talk to other councillors and myself. It really makes a difference when you come in to discuss this, because we share ideas. And I think this is a very important first step as we go forward. We have a cultural master plan, and I think it's a very good cultural master plan. And then we have portions that go, are recommendations, and so I like seeing steps being taken, but I still think we're going to work towards the big picture, the big plan. And so we need to look at this. And so I'm looking at the resolutions, therefore be resolved that cultural partners be identified as any group or organization that is financially supported through direct funding. And we have seen through my term how they work sort of independently, the museum, the cultural center, and our historical society. So, and we fund them, and not in full, but we do with the library, and so we can bring them in and see the spaces, and that's one of the objectives that Councillor Kim brought up. And then we can get goals, and then we could probably do share resources. But also, we are embarking on the cultural precinct, the library square, and downtown revitalization, And this is all part of the big picture. And I think we're going to make significant investments in those. So to the point, if we can identify through this notice of motion that the museum would like more space and that the cultural center has this in mind and the library would like this, then when we're planning on investing in building a building or an area, we should know those. And we should know that they are now united and there's a consensus among them. So I think it's valuable when we go forward that we look at all the parties and everyone that's going to be affected. So that's why I'm in support of this. I am also, I think there's now with the Cultural Precinct and other initiatives, an opportunity for us to look at the cultural master plan and see the role that it plays, because I believe it's significant in a strategy moving forward. So put all those together, I think we can best serve the residents when we're making investments. So this may speak to getting to that, and I think it's an important step, and so I appreciate that we are moving in that way, and I will be supporting this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Other speakers? Councillor Perry, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to be brief, I agree with Councillor Thompson in that I'm okay to support this tonight. I think there is value in identifying what we're being asked to identify. But if at a later date we're being asked to encroach upon the Ontario Libraries Act with our motion, I think it'll be a discussion to have at another day, but I don't think it's necessarily one that we have to have tonight. I am in full support of this this motion moving forward.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me, I'm also in support of this motion. I don't believe the town could encroach on the Libraries Act. And I would like to see what comes out of this. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Kim. Mr. Kim, you said this was going to be in 2 parts, ending in March 31st. Could you just repeat what you said about the 2 parts?
Councillor Kim.
Yes, if I can respond to Councillor Wendy's or Councillor Gardner's question and the other question that's been brought up. Well, so the first part is identifying the cultural partners. And during that time, there will be collaboration. It's not going to be a unilateral, here it is, and just do it. This is going to be an open dialogue. You can call it a cultural summit if you wish, but it will be just the CAO facilitating and listening to all the players over the last 5, 10, 15, whatever amount of years that he needs to go back to understand the history of the organizations as well as the relationships and the relationships with the town, because it's been mentioned that we've had reviews before, but obviously it hasn't been an all-encompassing review. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the issues that we have today. And I thought I made myself clear in personal discussions, but the library I'm already aware that it's a separate entity under the Public Libraries Act, and there is no intention to restructure the library in any way. I don't think that's possible, so that's not part of this. They are part of the cultural aspect in our landscape, and so what they could do perhaps is assist in the dialogue and perhaps assist in the solution, because they are active partners with the other cultural partners. But like I said earlier, the other way is the other issue that it'd be nice to have clarified is the space in those 2 rooms, Lebovic and Magna. I know being on the library board, that's been brought up numerous times in terms of the libraries growing, and with the growth of the population, we need more space. So maybe that's something that we need to deal with, and hopefully Mr. CAO will deal with that as well. Did I answer your question, Councillor Gardner?
Councillor Gardner.
You answered what the first part's going to be. Then when all that information is gathered, at that point, the CAO is going to sit down with himself and potentially a consultant or consultants and bring a report to us by the end of March.
Yes, it is my hope that he will identify the issues or the challenges that face the cultural partners from preventing it from reaching their full potential. And my hope is that, so once he understands the issues, he'll now have his mandate in terms of what he needs to investigate. And my hope is that by March 31st of next year, he'll have some recommendations and a summary of his investigation.
Councillor?
Thank you very much. That seems like a logical progression.
Councillor Marcus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be real brief. I'm in support of the motion. I want to thank Councillor Kim for bringing it forward. I think it's an important step to move forward, to bring everyone together. We've seen many times when you bring everyone together and everyone's talking and actually having conversations and things actually happen and we can actually move forward. So I think this is a good step, and I'm looking forward to what the CAO is going to bring back to us. And I mean, as Councillor Thompson and Councillor Perry did mention about the library, I don't believe that anything would come back to us that would overstep any legislation that would put us in a spot that we would have to be approving something that we can't really approve. So I don't see any problems with that. I do think that the library does offer, as Councillor Kim mentioned, they do offer cultural services in essence. So I think it's important that they be at the table and discussing this and having their say and what their thoughts are on moving forward. And I think that's very useful. So yeah, like I said, I'm looking forward to what the CAO brings to us. I'm just curious also, I mean, I see the end date of the March 31st. I'm just wondering when the terms of reference would be looking to come back. And I know our CAO is not here right now, but I'm wondering maybe if Councillor Kim could kind of give us a thought of when he's thinking that term of reference would possibly come back.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The terms of reference will come back hopefully around end of November when he also confirms his mandate as well.
Thank you. And then just a comment. We heard from a resident, Mr. Hurd, talk about culture and heritage. In Aurora, we do care about our heritage a lot. And I do have one person that always sticks in my head that always says the same thing to me, is that we need to know where we came from to be able to know how to get to where we're going. So, it is important for us to, bring everyone to the table and hear all these concerns, heritage, culture, everything, and put them all together and move forward. And so I'm looking forward to that report.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus. Councillor Kim, I support the concept of the motion, but I don't support your first whereas clause. Because my sense is that you're hamstringing the CAO before he can go through his review. Last term, we went through a very robust discussion on selecting who was a cultural partner when we were developing the cultural master plan. And for those of you who were on council last time, remembering those discussions. I would rather leave it open that he comes back to us with a list of what he feels in conjunction, as an example, with Mr. Downey, who's already done a substantial amount of work with respect to the cultural master plan. There was a lot of groups out there that we don't necessarily directly support, but certainly add to the culture of our town. So I would rather either see that particular clause be revised or we'll separate them out so I can vote against that particular clause. Pardon me? The first therefore be resolved that cultural partners be identified. In my opinion, we're predefining what the CAO is supposed to do. So I would either ask Councillor Kim to strike that clause, or we'll just separate them out and I'll vote against it. Councillor, for a second time, I have Councillor Thompson and Councillor Abel.
Just briefly, I wanted to appreciate Councillor Kim providing further clarification and ensuring that his thoughts to this was having an open dialogue, being very inclusive of having all of the partners which will be identified, being able to be part of that forum and discussion. And I like the idea of that cultural summit to be able to share those ideas and look at ways in which everybody can grow together. So certainly supportive of that, and I look forward to what the CAO will bring back in further discussions.
Councillor Abel.
My comment was based on the reservations about the library being included because they are a legislated entity. And my comment is that, and I think it was shared, that we're not really going to oversee what they do with their budget. In fact, we should celebrate our library as one of the very best. It's recognized in our region and in the greater Toronto area as one of the very best. I would like to point out that they're also very innovative in where they're going. They see the need to change the library, and they are out engaging. We've seen them almost every time we have an event. They are there to engage the public, to share new ideas. They're putting music